All of you watching this video presentation are familiar with your state's one-call system. Each of you play a vital role in how well that system works. And how well that system works has everything to do with damage prevention. And what that means and what it should mean to each of you is protecting what really matters. And protecting what really matters is protecting yourselves, getting home safely at the end of a day, protecting your cohorts. Protecting what really matters has everything to do with safeguarding the communities that you work within, that you live in. Protecting what really matters is about safeguarding your families, and it's about protecting your children. Unfortunately, we work within an industry where when and if something goes wrong, the ramifications can be catastrophic. Literally, one call can make a difference between life and death. The underground infrastructure is vast and growing, essential to all communities, providing essential services necessary for life, health, and social and business productivity. As the demands and needs of our society increases, so will our underground infrastructure. Here is an overview of our state, just the transmission pipelines. Here we have transmission pipelines conveying natural gas and hazardous liquids. These are only transmission lines, not including all the service lines connecting to that infrastructure, not including any of the electrical, communications, water distributions, or sanitary sewer systems, or communication systems. This gives you an idea of just how vast our infrastructure in this state is. So that leads us to who's protecting our communities. Are we doing everything that we can? Are you doing your job? Most states have enforcement protocols to ensure compliancy with the one-call codes. In Iowa, the enforcement authority is the Attorney General's office. In South Dakota, the authority is the South Dakota One-Call Board. In Illinois, the Illinois Commerce Commission. And in Nebraska, the Attorney General's office. In Iowa, enforcement allows the Attorney General to take any action necessary to enforce the penalty provisions of the Iowa One-Call Law. The following clip outlines the Iowa Attorney General's involvement in enforcing the penalty provisions.
One-call enforcement is one of the duties assigned by the Attorney General to the Environmental Law Division. We take this responsibility very seriously. When followed, the one-call law saves lives, prevents personal injuries, and protects essential utilities, property, and the environment. The law applies to anyone planning to engage in an excavation and to every owner or operator of an underground facility. The good news is almost everyone complies with the law. But for those who don't, the law authorizes the Attorney General to file suit in district court, where we ask the court to assess civil penalties and issue a court order prohibiting further violations. Here are the potential penalties. Violations involving natural gas or hazardous liquids pipelines may result in penalties of $10,000 per day up to a maximum of $500,000. Violations involving other underground facilities may result in penalties of $1,000 per day, up to a maximum of $20,000. We have filed 52 lawsuits in district court in 32 counties. Every one of these lawsuits has resulted in the assessment of civil penalties. One action also resulted in a fine for contempt of court for a repeat violator. Every lawsuit has resulted in a court order prohibiting further violations and subjecting the violator to potential contempt of court sanctions if the violations were willful. Contempt of court can result in imprisonment for up to 6 months. Most have also resulted in some press coverage regarding the violations and the violator. Of the lawsuits filed thus far, 9 out of 10 have involved natural gas or hazardous liquids pipelines. We have sued excavators who simply did not call the one-call notification center and request locates prior to the excavation, who called but did not wait for the underground facilities to be located and marked within 48 hours, or who damaged an underground facility but failed to notify the operator and backfilled over the damage. Here is why we take this so seriously. One-call violations can have very real and tragic consequences, including explosion of a natural gas pipeline resulting in the death of one pipeline worker and causing another pipeline worker to lose an eye, causing severe burn injuries to an excavator and knocking out natural gas service for an entire city during repairs, causing a fire just outside an apartment building that contained a daycare center for small children, or damage to a hazardous liquids pipeline resulting in the release of thousands of gallons of gasoline near a trout stream and cleanup costs totaling more than $500,000. Unfortunately, in 2012 we had two more tragic examples. On April 25, an excavator failed to provide 48 hours notice of excavations to install drainage tile in rural Plymouth County. The tile plow hit and ruptured a 24-inch diameter natural gas pipeline, resulting in a massive explosion and fire, creating a large crater 100 feet long, 35 feet wide, 30 feet deep, scorching 80 acres of farmland, destroying the tile plow and bulldozer, destroying an overhead high-voltage power line, causing substantial property damage to the pipeline, and injuring two employees who were hospitalized. 1 week later, the same excavator conducted another excavation to install drainage tile 1/4 mile from the former site, again without providing 48 hours notice. We filed suit, and the excavator paid the maximum civil penalty for the 2 days of violation, $20,000, and agreed to a permanent injunction. On April 27, another excavator failed to provide 48 hours notice of excavations to install drainage tile, this time in rural Jackson County. The tiling equipment hit and ruptured a 16-inch diameter natural gas pipeline, resulting again in a massive explosion and fire, creating a large crater, scorching the farm fields, destroying the tiling equipment, causing substantial damage to the pipeline company. The two employees on site narrowly escaped injury. We filed suit, and the excavator paid the maximum civil penalty for the 1 day of violation, $10,000, and agreed to a permanent injunction. These are just a few examples of the tragic consequences that can occur when excavators fail to comply with the one-call law. We trust that most of you attending this important program are familiar with the one-call law and fully comply. Our only hope is that these brief comments will serve as a reminder to everyone of the importance of this law and the potential consequences, legal and otherwise, when the law is violated. The Attorney General's office will do its part as needed to ensure compliance. Call or be called. Thank you.
Each of the states that you work within take damage prevention very seriously. It's important to remind everyone just what it is that's at stake. Here we have a situation where there's a bulldozer in the same proximity as a pipeline marker. This should never have happened. When you get to the job site, slow down, pay attention, look at your surroundings, and be careful. Safety begins with planning, and it ends with safe protocols at the job site. You play a vital role in safety and damage prevention, in safeguarding communities, in protecting life, health, and the environment. and preserving the essential services infrastructure. Protecting underground facilities means taking all the necessary precautions. But the very nature of underground facilities is that they're buried. They're out of sight. They're out of mind. You can't see them. So it's imperative that we all understand the potentials, understand what types of underground facilities are in place, understand and respect the underground facilities infrastructure by being prepared and being alert. Literally, there's more than meets the eye. In the following video, we'll take an in-depth look at one of our most essential of underground services.
Des Moines Water Works does about 30,000 locates every year. And we take every one of those locates very seriously because we know that every one of those jobs can result in a dig-in if we don't do it properly. Sometimes we have the impression that contractors have more respect for gas or electric markings because of the potential danger, or fiber markings because of the potential cost of the repair. But from our perspective, water should be one of the largest concerns because of the public health implications. Water is the only essential service that we deliver to customers that they actually consume.
We routinely test water samples taken throughout the distribution system. What we look for is a group of bacteria called coliforms, of which E. coli is one. These types of bacteria are indicators of sewage contamination.
But the things that people don't always think about are the potential for contamination. If you dig into a water main and it fails catastrophically, it's very likely that contaminants are going to get into that main at that point when we shut it down. More importantly, though, it's very likely that you're going to depressurize a large portion of the system, and when that happens, there's tremendous potential for backflow or back siphonage, which is actually drawing potential contaminants out of homes, out of businesses, through their service line by a vacuum effect on the water main, drawing those contaminants into the distribution system at points far from the actual point of contact.
The distribution system is a network of underground infrastructure pipes that are at risk at times due to activities within the distribution system. Once damage does occur, the primary threat is depressurization of the distribution system and subsequent contamination that could occur.
Des Moines Water Works treats Raccoon River water as our source water, which is far from potable when we start with it. We put that water through one of the most robust treatment processes in the country because it starts out such poor quality.
We're standing inside softener number 1 at the McMullen Water Treatment Plant. Target pH today leaving the softener is 10.6. With a pH of 10.6, we can expect and anticipate an effective kill of microbiological activity. From a water treatment perspective, this is one of the final steps of the process. Treated water, ready for human consumption, is pumped from this facility into the distribution system. That network of buried infrastructure, discharge pressure ranges anywhere from 105 to 125 psi leaving this station.
Everything we do in the distribution system, from the design of the facilities to the construction, installation, operation and maintenance, the locating of those facilities for other contractors, everything we do is with the goal of ensuring the quality of the water when it's delivered to our customers. We go to great lengths to ensure the life expectancy of our facilities. We use non-corrodable materials, we use polyethylene encasement on iron pipes, we use cathodic protection systems on iron or steel pipes to ensure that the facilities will last as long as they can. When we install iron pipe, we cover every single inch of that pipe with polyethylene encasement to protect it against corrosion. In addition, we attach magnesium anodes to the pipe every so often to act as sacrificial metal in the ground to prevent that pipe from corroding. They actually weld the anode lead from every anode directly to the pipe using an exothermic weld process, just to ensure long service life for that pipe. If that poly wrap is damaged, if one of those anode leads is broken, it renders that system unusable and it dramatically shortens the life of that facility. There are a lot of little things within that system that people might not even think about. like the tracer wire. It's not the pipe, nothing's going to leak if you break the tracer wire, but it makes it impossible for us to locate that facility the next time for the next person who's going to dig. Water can be incredibly dangerous, especially if it's a large main and they're working below grade in a trench or something. If they damage a large main in an area where there's high pressure, that trench or excavation is going to fill with water almost instantaneously. We have had contractors and their employees very nearly drowned before they could get out of the excavation when they hit a water main. That's something not everybody thinks about, but it makes it clear that paying attention to the water marks just as important as paying attention to the gas or electric marks. If there's a dig-in, the most important thing is for the contractor to let us know. We'll respond, we'll fix it, we'll take care of it, but it's a big job. We have to shut the system down, which inconveniences the customers. We have to excavate typically to make the repair. We have to make the repair. We have to flush, sample, communicate with the customers. There is a cost to that, and the contractor will likely bear that cost. We don't want that to happen. We want to do the locates, do them properly, have the contractors work with us, and be careful. It's in everyone's best interest.
Clearly, there is more than meets the eye when it comes to delivering potable water to 400,000 plus central Iowans. We invite all contractors working on or near the distribution system to join us in our effort to protect public health.
There is more than meets the eye, and we play a critical role in this industry in protecting what really matters. You can make a difference. We have to make a difference. Who else will? When it comes to the Iowa one-call system or your state's one-call system, it begins with planning, calling 811 before you dig, waiting the required 48 hours or the required timeline within your state, protecting and preserving the markings, respecting those markings, limiting unnecessary relocates, and requesting reasonable locates. In Iowa, a reasonable locate is 10 addresses within the same 100 block, 3 contiguous blocks in an urban area, or up to 1 mile in a rural area. Here you see the state timeline requirements. In Iowa, the timeline is 48 hours minimum, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. In Illinois, it's 48 hours minimum, but not more than 14 days, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. In South Dakota, it is a 48-hour minimum, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. And in Nebraska, it reads 2 full business days, but not more than 10 days, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. Damage prevention begins at the planning phase. Literally, you plan for safety and you plan for damage prevention. And in the damage prevention industry, planning includes scheduling your projects in advance, allowing time for those facility locates. It includes knowing the job details, your local codes, requirements, your regulations, the site description, the location, size of the affected area, etc. It includes taking all necessary precautions, having a damage prevention plan. It always includes safe excavating practices. Preparedness before arriving at the job site, once you get to the job site, and throughout are key to damage prevention and safety. So what is an excavation? In Iowa, law defines an excavation as when a structure, earth, rock, or other material in or on the ground is moved, removed, compressed, or otherwise displaced, including but not limited to grading, trenching, tiling, digging, drilling, augering, tunneling, scraping, cable or pipe plowing, driving, and demolition. They pretty much have it covered. The key here is you call before you dig. Pounding a stake in the ground under Iowa code would be considered an excavation. Offloading heavy equipment and compressing the soil could damage an underground facility. And per law, that would be considered an excavation. Again, the key is call first. It's a free call and it's a free notification. When you reach the backfilling and tamping stages, your excavation is not over yet. Backfilling and tamping, as you saw per code, is still part of that excavation. You want to be very careful to put clean backfill in. Avoid anything rough, any hard clay material, bricks or concrete or rocks, because that can damage the facilities as well. Tamping above an underground facility has to be done with precaution. Directional boring is an important technology, an important tool that we use in this industry, but it requires additional precautions. You must verify the depth first and leave additional room for the pullback. Tracking the bore head at all times is essential during the actual drilling and during the pullback process. And when crossing facilities, always hand dig to expose those facilities first, or use other accepted means such as vacuum or hydro excavating procedures. It is critical that you know your area of proposed excavation prior to making the notice to your one-call system. Identifying the dig site properly is essential. Remember, not all developments are mapped. State laws require the underground facility operators to provide a database, a mapping of where their facilities are located. But what's slower to come into the system are the actual geographic databases. You may have a new plat development, a new piece of land was annexed in. So don't always assume that that general information, that geographic information is on hand. You must be prepared to use and provide detailed information, such as landmarks, rivers, buildings, major streets and intersections, mile markers, or other types of boundaries. If you have a GPS receiver, your one-call system will take a GPS latitude and longitude coordinate. Locates outside of a city in Iowa require that the county, township, range, and section number be provided. This information can be found in many locations, including plat books, the assessor's office, or the Iowa Department of Transportation's website. This is all part of the planning process, identifying that information prior to making the notice. If you find yourself in the field and you don't have that information on hand, you can actually call the reference desk of your local library, tell them what city you're in, what county, and they'll tell you that other information. The various types of locate requests within your states include the regular notice. In Iowa, that's a 48-hour advance notice, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. The emergency notification, the dig-in to report damage, and there are other ticket types, including joint meet locates, relocates or refreshers, a no response, modifications to an existing ticket, which will generate a new ticket, and the design request system, which is for licensed designers only. The definition and timelines of emergency by state include, in Iowa, a condition where there is a clear and immediate danger to life or health, or essential services, or a potentially significant loss of property. There is no specified timeline in Iowa. If there is no response within a reasonable amount of time, you must call the operator directly or notify Iowa One Call. Excavation can begin immediately, provided reasonable precautions are taken to protect the underground facilities and a notice is made as soon as practical thereafter. In South Dakota, an emergency is an occurrence which demands immediate action to prevent significant environmental damage or loss of life, health, property, or essential public services, including the re-erecting of critically needed traffic control signs or devices. And underground facility operators shall respond as soon as possible, but no longer than 2 hours during the business day and not longer than 4 hours outside of the business day or by the start time on the ticket, whichever is later. In Nebraska, an emergency is any condition which constitutes a clear and present danger to life, health, or property, or which demands immediate action to prevent or repair a major service outage. And in Nebraska, an excavator shall give notification to Digger's Hotline as soon as practical, and the utility members will provide all reasonably available location information to the excavator as soon as possible. In Illinois, an emergency is a locate request for any condition constituting an imminent danger to life, health, or property, or a utility service outage, and which requires immediate repair or action. There is a wait time of 2 hours in Illinois, or the date and time required or requested on the notice, whichever is longer. If a member does not respond within 2 hours, call the member company directly or the Julie system in Illinois. Most state one-call systems provide joint meets, allowing operators or locators to meet with excavators at the dig site. This is when the area of proposed excavation may be too large or complicated to explain to the call center representative. This is where information can be exchanged, such as maps, plans, or schedules. It is very important that operators and locators and excavators cooperate with each other to accomplish their work in an efficient and coordinated manner. Joint meet timelines are as follows. In Iowa, the timeline is 48 hours, where a joint meet includes a locate. In Iowa, only joint meets with locates to follow are provided. In other words, a joint meet automatically activates a locate ticket. Additionally, joint meets are not required by law under Iowa code. In South Dakota, the timeline is 2 days for appointment requests, available only between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. For Illinois, there is a 96-hour timeline, including 2 working days to respond and 2 working days to mark the facilities. And in Nebraska, there's a 72-hour timeline, 2 working days for notice, and 24 hours to mark the facilities after the meet. White lining is an important tool for excavators to use when identifying their area of proposed excavation. White is part of the American Public Works Association's color codes, white indicating the area of proposed excavation. Think of white lining as a tool for safety, a tool where the locator needs to locate only near the proposed area, allowing for more precise markings. White lining does save time for the locator and allows that locator to respond to your job even sooner. The bottom line to white lining is it provides better communication between excavators and locators. And national statistics show that white lining reduces excavation-related damage. As an excavator, you must call in your own locate request. You'll want to write down information for reference, including the dig ticket number, the facility operators that were contacted, and any other pertinent information about the job site. Never rely on someone else's locate markings. Make your own locate notification to Iowa One Call. Now, if you work within a company, a legal entity, it's okay. You can share a locate request. What I'm talking about is if you're a subcontractor, don't share with another contractor. If you're an excavator working in a residential market, don't allow the homeowner make the call for you. You want to have that information. The law requires the excavator doing the work to make that notification to the One Call system. You'll be expected to provide valid contact information. Iowa law requires that the excavator doing the work provide a contact telephone number that is accessible at all times throughout the excavation. Regarding the excavator and the markings, the excavator is responsible for preserving the markings at all times throughout the excavation. That requires respecting the markings. You may also establish suitable reference points, and you can call in for relocates, but only when necessary. Don't excavate beyond the defined area. In other words, when you make your notification to the One Call system, you'll be asked to define the area of proposed excavation. That area of proposed excavation is where you must confine your excavating. In Iowa, an excavation commences the first time excavation occurs in an area that was not previously identified by the excavator in an excavation notice. Excavating beyond that point defined in the original notice would be a non-compliancy with your state code. Validating the locate markings is a critical component of damage prevention. For safety and liability purposes, you may need to verify the markings. In this slide, you've got orange communication markers on two sides of the excavation with gas markings running into a fire hydrant. If something doesn't look right, don't take it for granted that it is. There are times when you will be required to expose facilities. In Iowa, law states, if, in the opinion of the operator, the planned excavation requires that the precise location of the underground facilities be determined, the excavator, unless otherwise agreed upon between the excavator and the operator, shall hand dig test holes to determine the location of the facilities unless the operator specifies an alternative method. Alternative methods may include hydro or vacuum excavation. In each state, the tolerance zone refers to the horizontal location of an underground facility and includes a predetermined distance on either side of the facility. In Iowa, that distance is 18 inches on either side of the facility. Oftentimes, this area, the tolerance zone, is referred to as the hand dig zone. There is no mechanized equipment allowed in the tolerance zone unless it's accepted means such as hydro or vacuum excavation. The following video highlights excavating practices within the tolerance zone.
Underground utilities are, by their very nature, unseen to the human eye, and as such, they are highly susceptible to excavation damage. Now, I think we all understand that under Iowa law, we are required prior to doing any excavation to call Iowa One Call and provide the utility company an opportunity to place marks or flags indicating the location of their underground facility. However, in some cases, those marks or flags aren't enough to make sure that that facility is safe. And so Iowa law also allows utility companies to require that an excavator determine the precise location of the underground utility by performing test digs or excavations. These test digs or excavations can often be done by hand digging, hydro excavation, or vacuum excavation. Iowa's One Call law defines a horizontal location as a space of 18 inches on either side of an underground facility. This area, which is referred to as the tolerance zone, includes the width of the facility plus 18 inches on either side. It is always important to consider that additional 18 inches. Excavators should always respect and preserve the above-ground markings since they are a critical reference point. Hand digging within and near the tolerance zone is a common and accepted industry practice. Utilizing the right technique, this can be a very efficient process. Hand probing is always an important procedure when exposing facilities, allowing the excavator to determine the progress and to avoid digging into the facility with the hand shovel. Using blunt-tipped probes also reduces the likelihood of damaging a facility.
Foot. A foot? Yeah.
Once the facility has been exposed, a visual verification can be determined and recorded. Obviously, when you can see something, you can avoid it. Continued potholing may be necessary or required if the excavation will continue beyond the point where the facility has been initially exposed. As one of the state's largest utilities, Mid-American routinely performs hand digging to expose underground utilities. While this takes extra time and effort, it's an important part of our damage prevention program. In the long run, this extra effort saves both time and prevents costly damage. There are times when hydro and vacuum excavating, an approved procedure for exposing facilities, will be a much more efficient and overall effective method for exposing facilities. Again, the above-ground markings should be maintained as reference points for determining the tolerance zone. Working together, a two-man crew can make very efficient use of this procedure, which can save considerable time in the long run. Techniques such as using a warning cone to reduce splatter can be most effective. The combination of high-pressure water and vacuum suction results in a safe and efficient method for exposing facilities inaccessible or otherwise too difficult to access via hand digging. Once visual verification can be made, an accurate measurement of the depth can be made and recorded.
Ironically, an unknown in our damage prevention industry is the depth of the underground facility. Locate markings indicate the horizontal location only. Determining depth actually requires exposing the facilities. Installation codes mandate depth requirements, and facility depth is always subject to change through soil erosion, removal of soil through grading, excavating, or landscaping, etc. Also through the frost and thaw cycles, which can cause the migration of buried facilities to work their way towards the surface. Because exposing facilities is critical to knowing precisely where they're located, the placement of facilities deep into the ground via directional boring can be very problematic and cause delays. While there are general consistencies with requirements between state one-call systems, there are differences, and it's important that excavators understand those differences. Regarding ticket expiration per state, in Iowa, locates are good for as long as the original markings are preserved or if suitable reference points have been established. The duration of the markings in Iowa are stated as: the markings must be applied in a manner that will last a minimum of 10 working days on permanent surfaces or 5 working days on non-permanent surfaces. If the excavation will last longer than such periods, the operator shall provide remarks at the request of the excavator. In Illinois, there is a specified expiration timeline of 14 days. And excavations lasting longer than 14 days require new locates. Remarking will be provided if original markings are destroyed. In South Dakota, the markings should last a reasonable timeline as permitted by conditions, where remarking will be provided at the request of the excavator. And in Nebraska, the expiration timeline is stated as 10 business days on permanent surfaces or 5 business days on non-permanent surfaces. In Nebraska, if excavation will last longer than 5 days, remarks will be provided upon the excavator's request. Reporting any instances of damage to underground facilities is a critical component of safety. In Iowa, an excavator shall, as soon as practical, notify the owner-operator when any damage occurs to an underground facility as a result of excavation. And note, if that damage results in an emergency, the excavator must notify 911 emergency services. Federal law requires that all excavators notify 911 emergency services if the excavation damage results in the escape of any flammable, toxic, or corrosive gas or liquid. It's important to remember that the rules and regulations of all state one-call systems apply to both contractors and operators and locators. Excavators should expect and demand reasonable business practices pertaining to the locating and marking of underground facilities. Excavators, are your markings intuitive? Are they clearly conveyed? Are they consistent compared to similar projects? Do they meet industry standards, such as the Common Ground Alliance best practices? Are they accurate? Are they marked complete? The locating and marking of underground facilities is an important tool for excavators. It's your damage prevention tool, and they must be as accurate as possible. You're going to want to document when you're in the field. Take pictures. If something doesn't seem right, make a notification back to the one-call system. Mid-American Energy's reasonable and prudent practices state that excavators must dig in a reasonable and prudent manner, including taking all necessary and required measures to avoid damaging underground facilities, using hand digging and hydro or vacuum excavation procedures, visually inspecting the excavation, as well as supporting any existing underground facilities in or near the site, Complying with state and federal laws is always critical and necessary. In summary, the critical role that you as excavators play has everything to do with protecting what really matters. The rules and regulations of your one-call system are stringent. Your responsibilities are high. There's nothing easy about what we've covered here. It's important that you remember what's at stake. Dig safe, and thank you for attending this presentation.